This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Good morning, Ira.
Good morning, sir. Welcome to Championshipville. Going to the conference finals.
It's crazy. Like, there's no way you would have ever thought this a month ago for either the Panthers or the Heat. And now you can't say, oh, no, it's impossible. Neither one of these can get to the finals or even win it. And if you look at the landscape, why not? Anything goes right now.
Yeah, there's not a super team, certainly in hockey. We're seeing that with the results on a nightly basis. And in basketball, it looks like the secondary series almost in the West of Lakers-Warriors has as good a chance as producing the Western finalist as Suns-Nuggets does. And in the East, just when you think they're a cut above, the Celtics have moments like they did yesterday against the Sixers. So you're not overwhelmingly afraid. Let's face it, when the playoffs started, you were overwhelmingly concerned about the Bruins and about the Bucks. Then South Florida took care of those two teams, and it's wide open. Just another case, Big O, the regular season doesn't matter if you're able to get in the playoffs. It really does become clean slate. We're seeing that in both leagues.
Yeah. Although it's more common in hockey that these kind of things happen, whereas in basketball, it's not nearly as common. So it's just a weird thing, man. It really is a weird dynamic. But again, the way the Heat is built right now, it kind of opens it up for them. And then the other thing that I've noticed, and obviously you've heard me praise the man the entire freaking year, I just think it's also a mismatch when you get in with Spo, because I look at what's gone on with Budenholzer, and then I look what's going on, with Tibbs. And to me, Tibbs is more of a motivational, hard worker, push you type of guy. I don't think he's going to outthink this guy X's and O's. I'm watching the Celtics game yesterday, and you don't even call a timeout at the end to set your play at the end there. I look at Spo and I compare him to what I'm watching everywhere else. Maybe Steve Kerr has shown me a little something, but outside of that, I'm not impressed by the coaching overall. I think Spo gives you an edge too every time you get into a series.
No, and if it does wind up being, Heat Celtics, and I'm not getting ahead of myself, folks. I said that in my Ask Ira today also. I'm asking some perspective here. But if it is, we know the Celtics have the greater depth of talent. We know the Celtics might have the more overall talent at the top. But Eric Spoelstra against Joe Mazzulla all of a sudden sort of moderates that a little bit. This is not against Brad Stevens. This is not against Ime Udoka, who was in the league for a long time before what he did. So that does change the factor. Probably if you're talking about the most battle-tested coaches in each league, you're probably talking about Paul Maurice just because of experience and how long he's done it, even with all his losses. And you're talking about Eric Spoelstra for what he's done as long as he's been around. And what's interesting is you listen to the Knicks talk, Big O, and it's almost like Spo's in their head. And they talk about how well prepared the Heat is. And they talk about how the Heat has made adjustments in this series. And they talk about how the Heat have a culture and a way of doing things. And once you can get into another team's head, that's part of the battle as well.
No, I'm with you there. And there's no doubt that Spo is he's playing chess and everybody else, is playing checkers. Jimmy Butler, I know it's impossible to find out information there, but the ankle, he twisted it up a little bit. Should be all right, you think?
Yeah, I think with Jimmy, I think it's more a matter of when the adrenaline gets going and the clock starts running and the horn goes off, he just gets in that zone. So he might be the kind of guy you might say, hey, I saw Jimmy out last night. He was walking with a limp a little bit. That's what it's going to be. They're putting a lot on this guy, but he's still finding a way to come through. So I'd say Jimmy on game nights, and Jimmy's also smart. Jimmy knows if you win the next two, and again, let's not assume anything, but if you win the next two, you get 4 or 5 more days off. He knows that. He knows the Celtics Sixers are going at least 6 games. So there's a lot on the line. I think tonight very much could be a break the spirit game.
Oh, yeah.
If you can get up 3-1 and you go back to the Garden, instead of go New York, go, it's sort of go New York, oh, and there's doubt. And if they fall behind, I'm not going to say they're bandwagon fans, but they're sort of bandwagon fans. We saw that with the bad Rangers play in the Rangers series in the Garden. When it started going south, they got on them a little bit. So I think
Well,
tonight,
listen, Ira, deep down inside, if you understand basketball and you watch, there's no way any Knicks fan could ever feel that their team right now is at an even plateau with the Heat. They have looked like the inferior team in all 3 games.
when you
Even
count that Jimmy was out in game 2, yeah,
they,
and the
even
officiating in that game. But Big O,
they had to have felt fortunate in their only win that the Heat lost because they know that the Heat was the better team even that day too. I
okay,
mean,
so let's be honest. If the Heat win tonight, you're feeling very good about the Heat. You're feeling very concerned about the Knicks. But let's be honest the other way.
yeah.
If the Knicks win tonight and they go back 2-2 with 2 of the final 3 at home, it still lifts their confidence. It might
It
not.
lifts their confidence, but I'm not I'm not like, oh my God, the Heat are screwed because I'm really not impressed with
No,
the
it
Knicks.
would. I don't think that he would be disappointed necessarily, but I think it would add optimism to the Knicks equation. So this is a step
Sure.
on the throat game. This is getting Jimmy and getting Bam and getting your leading men and your top players involved also. And again, we talk about the Knicks situation now. Look, the Heat are already without Oladipo and of course Tyler Hero. If Quickly doesn't play, that's their spark off the bench. That's going to put more pressure on Randall. That's going to put more pressure on Brunson. And don't kid yourself. Just because Brunson's not on the injury report with that ankle doesn't mean that you and I and everyone didn't see him limping to the finish at the end of game 3. He's not himself also. You want to create an air of doubt with the Knicks. You can do that tonight. Kaseya Center at 740.
Well, I think that the doubt is already there. I mean,
You want to
there's
increase the doubt,
no
ramp
way,
it up.
yeah, you're right, but there's no way that team, that coaching staff, or the fan base has any kind of confidence in this series right now. They've looked like the inferior team from the get-go. They've looked like the team that's not better prepared from the get-go. So to me, they cannot go into this game. In fact, I think they go into this game with very little confidence and something you can easily shatter if you're the Miami Heat. What you can't do is play like the Sixers, that after you get that win, you just lay a freaking egg the next game and you don't even show up and just give the game away, to the Celtics. That's what you can't do. And that's what I don't think you'll see from the Heat, that they'll just, oh, okay, we won. We like what they did before, like what I was saying, they got their split. The Sixers were happy getting that first win with Boston. All right, let's give them game 2 with no problem. I don't think the Heat's going to come in complacent today and say, so what if we give them the game? We're doing all right ourselves right now. I think you're going to see a team that's going to try to go for the jugular tonight.
I'd like to see that. And I think that starts with hitting 3-pointers early and creating that doubt. The Heat are missing their shots and carries the Knicks in the game. If Julius Randle gets Bam out of Iowa in early foul trouble, and I think that'll be the Knicks' goal, it could change the tenor of the game. Bam can be overly aggressive a little bit at the start because he wants to show his defensive chops. So I'll be curious. I think one of the main weighing points today is Bam staying out of early foul trouble. It might mean giving Randle some points, but also keeping himself on the floor.
But he's also had some moments where he kind of kept his distance and showed some patience, and some restraint in all of that. Listen,
Absolutely.
to me, as long as he continues to play the way he's playing right now, and everyone else is shooting and complimenting Butler, I think that kind of plays the role. You know what I mean? We can't keep sitting here going, well, we need Bam to be Mr. Aggressive and go out there and put up 20. That's not who he's going to be night in or night out. Just go and play the role that you play. And to me, the key is Strus and Vincent and Caleb. These are the guys that have to score and hit their shots, to complement Butler. To me, that's the key to this winning. Bam's going to do the defensive stuff that he does, set the picks, facilitate all that. But Butler's going to do Butler things. To me, it's up to that trifecta of really putting together the points to be. It's like that trifecta has to become Robin. In other words, that's what that trio is.
Right. No, that's a good point because the Heat don't have the definitive number one running partner to Jimmy, but they do it by committee, different players on different nights. And you know what? You left out one of your favorites there. But Kyle Lowry's made a difference with that second unit also.
Yeah,
He's
the
come in,
assists,
he's sparked it, he's hit shots, he's made smart plays, he hasn't made bad plays. So you're right. It really is Jimmy and then everyone else. It's not, it's funny. I read it in the New York paper the other day, and I never thought of it this way. The Knicks' big three has to come around. And I'm like, really? Are we really calling Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle and RJ Barrett a big three? Have we so diluted the term big three that qualifies? Like, I saw that and it sort of like shook me. I never would call Jimmy and Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero when healthy the big
Didn't
three.
they print shirts for beating the Cavs?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, dropping streamers when they beat the Heat back in 2013, their one victory in the series, which might be the case again this time around.
Yeah. And by the way, the other guy I left out is Love.
Yes.
Love has done, believe it or not, Love has been fantastic in every way, shape, or form. He'll
As
get
a complimentary player.
He'll get an assist. He'll get a rebound. He'll play a little defense every once in a while. It's kind of magical the way he sprinkles in, and he helps out a little bit. So Lowry and Love, I got to give both those guys some credit. They have contributed in their own way to really help out. What I think is, it's like the three-headed monster. It's Butler, it's Bam doing his thing, and then the other three guys contributing with all the points. Although I got to give Caleb a little extra love on defense. He finds a way to make a couple of defensive plays too to really help out.
Yeah, but I think when you're talking with Kyle and Kevin, that's the hardest adjustment you make is getting older, going from being former star to complimentary player. Kevin's doing it. He's just so glad to be playing. Cleveland, he couldn't get into the playoffs out of the play-in last year. Now he sees his former team losing to these same Knicks in 5 decisive games. So I think he's feeling so good, he'll do whatever it takes. He's living the life. When he was in Cleveland, he never thought he would be an active participant in mid-May in NBA playoffs. So he really is just glad to be there.
So, well, you look at this matchup. Give me who's going to be the other star next to Butler tonight.
I think the other star is going to be the three-point shooters. I would put them collectively. That's what they need. They need to space the floor for Bam. They need to space the floor for Jimmy. They need to hit shots. Hell, it could be Duncan Robinson. It could be Gabe Vincent. Gabe was terrible on Saturday, at least with the shooting. But you know what? All of a sudden, you look at that as a one-off instead of typical because he's been so good in the playoffs. So maybe he comes around. Max has been very consistent early. Putting him in the starting lineup has really helped. And it's interesting, Big O. In my Ask Ira this morning at sunsentinel.com, I said, if Tyler Hero does come back, he's gone from the bigger wrap to the smaller brace on the hand and he comes back. Clearly, he would come back as a reserve because I'm not taking Max Strus out of the starting lineup right now.
No.
Not the way this chemistry has worked. So it shows you how Max Strus has made himself. It's interesting. Max and Vince are impending free agents. When I was on, I believe it was called, the Big O Show earlier this year on the Acura Pembroke Pines Report, we talked about how you can't overpay Gabe and you can't overpay Max. You can't make the Duncan mistake. Well, I got to tell you, with their performance in these playoffs, it might not be from the Heat, but they're attracting notice. And if they were before minimum or minimal scale players before the playoffs, there's teams out there looking at Max Strus and going, hey, that guy can help us with this toughness. They're looking at Gabe Vincent and going, it's almost like backup quarterback in the NBA, in the NFL, where you overspend. We need a backup point guard. So I think those two guys, the playoffs have been really helpful for them. It's going to create some decisions for the Heat, but they both have boosted their stock during this playoff run.
Can we create compensatory picks in the NBA so that he can, start getting some compensatory
not that simple. You know what? When you threw all that money at Duncan and when you gave all that money to Kyle, you put yourself in this position. But you know what? And I know other people love to do who's coming back, who's not, who can they get. My thought on all of this and even stretch payments and all that, let's enjoy this moment. This moment could be fleeting. This moment could be illusory. Let's enjoy it now. We'll have plenty of accurate Pembroke Pines reports to get to what they're going to do down the road. So, hey, I'll leave that to Andy. I'll leave that to Nick. I'll leave that to Mickey. We'll enjoy the games for the moment.
Although I will say selfishly, in the Bucks series, I was talking that, hey, one of the other positives of all of this is that Duncan was creating value for himself in the offseason. It's kind of waned here in this series.
It just takes one more moment. It just takes one more moment. He hits 4 tonight. He's back in the consciousness.
Yeah, he needs another moment or two to light up his interest for the offseason, because if you're going to pay, Strus or Gabe, you probably need to move Duncan in order to do that. So that's kind of the give and take out of all of this. So hopefully Duncan can have some more moments. So maybe other teams might be interested in acquiring his services. All right, what are you working on the Sun Sentinel leading up to game time tonight so folks can check you out?
If you get a chance to go online, it'll be in tomorrow's paper. It started innocuously. They had a drill. Kevin Love just showed up. Chris Quinn said, okay, Kevin, lead us. Start the drill. And it took off from there. Lead us, Kevin. Lead us, Max. And they got to the point where they're now Lead Us Kevin t-shirts the equipment staff made up. And they're just enjoying each other's company. So when you walk in that locker room, you'll hear a guy just shout out, lead us, Max, lead us, Gabe. And when they win games, Eric Spoelstra brings it in, and it's lead us. And the other day was Cody Zeller for what he did, standing up to Julius Randle when Isaiah Hartenstein pushed him. So they're really enjoying it. So you know what? Sometimes you create these phony things, or a turnover chain, the hard hat or something, and it becomes forced. This
16 strong, 16 strong or whatever, right?
You know, this happened organically. This was just someone saying something, so I wrote the entire history of Lead Us and how it played out. That's at sunsentinel.com. And I did write that Ask Ira this morning. If Tyler Hero comes back, and he could be back by next round, basically after how we've seen it work so well with Kyle Lowry off the bench, I would assume that they would ease Tyler back in the mix. You're getting better defense in the starting unit. You're getting more three-point shooting and spacing in the starting unit. But you know what? Like Eric Spoelstra would tell us, that's a good problem to have if Tyler comes back, because there will be a moment when it'll be late in the game and you'll need to put in one more offensive player. There's no downside there. We know the guy has played as a closer before. So if he's getting closer, God bless the Heat, and you just hope for the best.
Well, not only that, even if he's not closing, he's decoying if he's out there
like Jimmy was when he was limping around on the bad ankle the other day in game one. So as you have another body you got to pay attention to, no downside there. Absolutely.
Yeah. Zero downside there. All right, follow him on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat, and more importantly, subscribe to the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Ira, as always, thank you, my brother. We'll catch up.
Catch you next time in our Acura Pembroke Pines Report. Thanks, Big O.
Appreciate it. There you go. Ira Winderman. That is our Acura of Pembroke Pines Miami Heat, an NBA report.